Today I want to talk about INFJs and emotions. So, we are one of the types that are balanced between feeling and thinking. Our dominant function is intuition. So, we are out of balance with intuition and sensing, but we are balanced between feeling and thinking, which means that in general, INFJs value both emotions and logic a lot. We are very focused on people and emotions, relationships, understanding people's motivations. We might be wanting to express ourselves emotionally by doing creative things like maybe making music or something like that. But at the same time, besides being more focused on the human and emotional aspects of life, we are also very interested in knowledge and just analyzing things and figuring things out. And we can also become very detached sometimes from our emotions and just kind of be in analyzing mode, in TI mode. So we are generally balanced, but of course we prefer feeling. But it's the weird thing where it kind of depends. If you are an INFJ and you're pretty introverted, it might be a bit more confusing because we value feeling more. But at the same time, when we're being introverted, it's really easy to just be using introverted thinking all the time. That's the weird thing, and it's probably the other way around for people who are for example, an INTJ who would, when they're being introverted, might actually be more focused on feelings with their introverted feeling. And then when they're being extroverted, they're more logical. But if they're introverted all the time, even though they're thinkers, sometimes they might be also very in touch with their feeling side. But of course, overall, we INFJs, we are feelers. So we can feel a lot. It can give your life more meaning when you care very deeply about things, and it can give you motivation for things and goals and stuff. But it can also make you feel like you're really easily upset by things, makes you feel a bit less stable as a person. And I feel like that's a thing for feelers in general. So, INFJs have extrovert feeling and introvert thinking in the middle, which is similar for ISFJs. Having it in the middle means that we can constantly switch between extrovert feeling and introverted thinking. Your dominant function, it kind of pushes you to just keep doing that. You want to keep using your dominant function, and your inferior function is kind of pushed away. You really want to avoid using that. But with your middle two functions, you don't have that problem. Even though they are opposites, you can use both of them and just kind of switch between them relatively easily. So it's like you constantly switch focus between them, like a lens, like with a camera, oh, now I'm focused on introvert thinking and extrovert feeling is kind of in the background, or now I'm focused on extrovert feeling and introvert thinking is in the background, not really in focus and not really doing much. But the thing is, even though you can easily switch, they are still opposites. So this kind of means that you cannot do both of them at the same time. And I notice a difficult thing with that is that, which I think I also mentioned this in another video, that this is a problem that people with extroverted feeling and introverted thinking have in general. Is that for them it can be really difficult to work through their emotions or process their emotions because they are not really using introverted feeling a lot. I also said I think that it's good for us to talk about our emotions and to express them and stuff in order to process them, simply because when we're being introverted, it's more difficult to access our emotions in general. The problem with introverted thinking is that if you want to access this function and use it, it will kind of shut off your emotions, because introverted thinking wants to be objective, and that can be really useful so that you can have an analysis that's not biased towards what you want or something, that's fully objective. But this also means that whenever you are being introverted, it's really easy to start using introverted thinking, and then you get into that analysis and your emotions kind of get driven away, and it's like you can't really reach them at that moment, and that can make it difficult sometimes to work through emotions. For example, you might not understand why you are feeling a certain way, and then you want to analyze why. You want to understand, why am I feeling this way, like work through it. But then once you start analyzing it, your feelings are gone again, you don't feel anything anymore. So you're like, well, I was going to figure this out, but now it's gone and I don't know how I feel anymore, So that can make it difficult to process emotions. Whereas for introverted feelers, they are supposed to be able to like be introverted and kind of think about things actively, and at the same time being very in touch with their emotions and feeling emotional at the same time. Whereas for us, it's a lot more difficult to do that. So with myself, I do notice that I get generally more emotional when I am being extroverted. For example, like when being with people, INFJs might be like get really emotionally expressive when they're with people, and when they're focused on them, but when they get really inside their head, they might suddenly become really unemotional and detached. The more closed off they get, the more detached they also get from their emotions, and the more like analytical they get. So one thing I would advise for, well, INFJs and also just anyone who has introverted thinking and extroverted feeling is, if you want to process your emotions, so first of all, like I said in another video, of course, it might help to just be extroverted and like be with people or talk about it with someone or whatever, doing something extroverted or like listening to music or something in order to be focused on your emotions more and process them. But another way to process them is to just tell yourself, like, don't analyze them, just feel them. And if you just focus on your feelings and not analyzing it, not thinking about why, just focusing on just feeling it, kind of like, like meditating in a way, then you might be able to process it better. And I think that it's partly because you're not really focused on introverted thinking. I wonder if it's the same thing with introverted feelers and extroverted thinkers, where they might have the same problem, where the more extroverted maybe they get, the less emotional they feel, and the more introverted they get, the more emotional they feel. For INFJs, since we are balanced, it's relatively easy to be both detached from our emotions as well as be very emotional. It's like we have both sides. And yeah, I also noticed that sometimes, feelings can just be kind of postponed or something, like something bad may happen. And then you don't feel much until later. For me, sometimes I get so stuck in introverted thinking that something bad happens and I don't necessarily feel upset. And then I'm like, why am I not feeling upset? Even though I'm supposed to feel upset because I know I care about this. Because, like, thinkers, if I would compare this situation with thinkers who probably have this a lot, thinkers are still aware, of their values and what they care about. Because, of course, every person has values and cares about things. They are still aware of it, but they are not as connected with their emotions. So they might have moments where they are like, I know I care about this, but I don't feel anything. Whereas, like, I am supposed to care, I know I'm supposed to care because I know this is one of my values, or I care about this person, but I don't feel anything. I don't feel sad, stuff like that. That might be difficult. And I would have this at sometimes at moments, and sometimes that just means I'm being too introverted. And then later, all of a sudden, I feel really emotional. So that's my experience as an INFJ with emotions and just with having extroverted feeling and introverted thinking in the middle. And I hope that other INFJs can relate. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.